Hi math class, welcome back to another lesson. Great work on yesterday's lesson. Nice job practicing your division, your multiplication, addition, and subtraction problems, as well as writing fractions on a number line. So way to go. So before you start today's lesson, please look over your work from yesterday's lesson and check to see if you have any corrections. If you have any questions about any of the sections or you want me to review any of the concepts, just let me know and we can schedule a time to do that. So for today's class, we're going to be looking at lesson 69 and we're going to be looking at parts 1 through 6. So let's get started. I'll read what it says in our book. So in part 1, we're going to be looking at ratios. So you're going to write names and fractions from each sentence. So the sample sentence or the example sentence is this, right? Each box holds 31 nails. Right, and then if we look, we have to first write a fraction using words, and then we're going to have to write a fraction using numbers. So if you look at the example on your sheet, the two things we're comparing are boxes and nails, right? So that's what we're gonna put in our first blank, right? We have boxes and nails. Right? Each box holds 31 nails, right? So for every one box, we have 31 nails. Just like that. Now let's look at part A, right? In part A, it tells us every cat has 19 fleas, right? So the two things we're comparing are cats and fleas. So that's what we're going to write in our first blank. Right? Cats and fleas. Right? Every one cat, right? Every cat, so that's only one cat, has how many fleas? 19. So we're going to put the 19 in the blank. So what I want you guys to do is to read the rest of the sentences. In the first blank, once again, you're going to be writing the names of the two things you're comparing. And then beside that, you're going to write the fraction associated with the two things. Make sure to line up your numbers with the correct items. So you can pause the video now, and then we'll look at part B, or part 2, sorry. I'm gonna just erase this here, and then we can look at part 2. So in part 2, we're going to be looking at equivalent fractions. Your job is going to be to write equations to show the two fractions that are equal and the fractions that you multiply the first fraction by. I know this may seem a little bit confusing, so I'll try to break it down for you even further. So let's look at part A. Beside it, you have the images of two separate objects, right? So in A, we have this object, and then beside it, we have another object. I'm going to just quickly draw them for you. And all of the parts are shaded. Let me just finish this up. So this is what you will have for part A. Let me just move this a little bit over, right? You have your drawings or you have your images for your first item, and then you have your images for your second item. I know they're a little bit harder to see, but on your sheet, you'll be able to see them a little bit more clearly. All we're trying to do for part 2 is show that this and this are equal. So how we're going to do that is we're going to show the numbers that we're multiplying this fraction by to get this fraction. If your top number and your bottom number are the same number, that means that these fractions are equivalent. So our first step is going to be to write the fraction for this first set of pictures, right? So once again, our top number in our first fraction is going to be how many parts are shaded, right? So there's 1, 2. So 2 parts are shaded, so my top number will be 2. The bottom number for my first fraction is going to be how many parts are in 1 unit. Each one of these rectangles is 1 unit. So this is 1 unit, and this is 1 unit. That means our bottom number is going to be 1, right? Because there is only 1 rectangle per unit. We're going to leave this next blank, what we're multiplying by, empty, and we'll go over to the third blank, which is right after our equal sign. And what we're going to do here is once again write the fraction for the second pair of images. So you might not be able to see it on here as clearly, but if you look at your sheet, we can count how many parts are shaded, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there are 8 parts shaded, so 8 will be my top number. And then once again, just like in this image, each one of these rectangles is 1 unit, right? So we have to count how many parts are in one of these rectangles, or how many parts are in 1 unit, right? There's 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 4 parts in 1 unit. So 4 will be our bottom number. So now what we have to do, so now what we've done so far is for the first set of images, we wrote our fraction, which was 2 over 1. For the second set of images for part A, right, we wrote down the fraction, which is 8 over 4. So now we want to show that these two fractions are equivalent, or they are equal. So how we're going to do that is we're going to have to decide or find out what we multiply this first fraction by to get this second fraction, right? So 2 multiplied by what number will give us 8, right? It's 4. And then for my bottom, I'm also going to see how I went from this 1 to this 4. So 1 multiplied by what number will give me 4? It'll be 4 as well. Right? So since both of my top and bottom numbers are the same number, that tells us that these two fractions are equivalent. So what I want you guys to do now is to look at part B. Once again, you have one set of images, and then beside it, you'll have another set of images. In the first blank, you're going to write the fraction for the first image, and then in the third blank, you'll write the fraction for the second image. Then you're going to have to figure out what numbers you have to multiply your top and bottom by. Just as a hint, in this middle column, both of these should be the same number. So your top and bottom should be the same number. So you can pause the video now, and then I'll see you guys in part 3. So welcome back to part 3. So we're going to be completing a table. So it tells us in the textbook that these are like tables you've worked before. So we've seen these types of tables before, but the problems for each row have larger numbers. The best way to work each row is to work the division problem first and to get an answer. Then you can complete the missing numbers in your multiplication problem. So I will quickly write or draw this table out, and then I'll do the first 2 with you, or I'll do the first 1 with you, and then I want you to try the rest on your own. Let me just quickly draw this. So in your table, the first column is just showing you the format that you're going to be writing your answers. Right? So the very first one shows us that we're going to be finding a number multiplied by a number will give us a certain number. So we'll be practicing our multiplication. And then in this column, we're going to be practicing our division. So you're going to have to write a number before the division sign. You're going to need to have a number inside the division sign, and then your answer will go on top. So in our first blank, we have blank multiplied by blank equals something. And then in our division question, we have 5 dividing into 355. Right? So this is going to be our first problem. So this will be problem A. Right? Before we can solve our multiplication problem, we first have to solve the division problem. So just like we would do any division problem, we're going to look at the 5 and try to divide it into the first number underneath the division sign, right? So 5 divided into 3. We can't divide 5 into 3, so we're going to look at the next number as well. So we're going to try to divide 5 into 35, right? So 5 can go into 35 how many times? So you can use your multiplication chart to help you, or we can skip count by 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, right? So 5 divides into 35 7 times. So I'm going to write a 7 right above that 5. Now I'm going to look at the next number, right? 5 dividing into 5. 5 goes into 5 one time, so I'm going to write the 1 right above the 5. So now we're done our division problem, right? 5 divides into 355 71 times. So now we're going to change this division problem into a multiplication problem. So once again, our answer is going to come after the equal sign. And when we're multiplying, it does not matter which order we put the other numbers in. But what I'd like to do is I'll just put the 5 at the beginning, so 5 multiplied by, and our answer is 71. Right, so 5 multiplied by 71 gave us 355. So once again, for these problems, first what you're going to want to do is solve the division problem, or first take your multiplication problem, put it into a division problem if you can, then solve the division problem, and then you can fill in the missing numbers in your multiplication problem. So you can pause the video now and finish off the other two. And I'll see you in part 4. So welcome back to part 4. So in part 4, we're going to be making number families for each problem, and then we're going to solve. So we have 2 number families, and what I've done, if you look at the questions carefully on your worksheet, I've highlighted the key word. Remember, if you see keywords such as more or less or fewer, that means it'll be a difference problem. In our case, for both of these number families, we have the keyword all. So that tells us this will be a regular number family. So we'll go over part A together, and then I want you guys to try part B on your own. So part A tells us Jill read 21 books, and Dale read some other books. Dale read 17 books. How many books did they read in all? Right, so we're comparing 2 different people. We're comparing how many books Jill read and how many books Dale read. Right, so our 2 categories are going to be Jill and Dale. At the end of our arrow, or our big number, is going to be how many books they read in all. So all is going to come at the end of my number family. If we look at our question, it tells us that Jill read 21 books. Dale, it tells us, read 17 books. So what we have to figure out is how many books did they read in all. So right here where I'm putting my box is what we're trying to find, this missing number. Since the missing number comes after the arrow, that means it's going to be a big number. In order to find the big number, I'm going to have to add my 2 little numbers. So you're going to have to add 21 and 17. Right, so 21 plus 17, 7 plus 1 will give us 8. 2 plus 1 will give us 3. So our answer is 38 books. So together, Jill and Dale read 38 books. So what I want you guys to do now is, using the exact same layout we did with this question, is to work on part B. Except in part B, you're comparing how many lamps and tables a store sold. Once again, your keyword is the word all, so that will come at the end of your arrow. So you can pause the video now, work on part B, and then I'll see you guys in part number 5. So in part 5, we're practicing our multiplication, and then for the last question, or part D, you're going to be practicing your addition. I want to go over part A with you guys for part 5 because we have more steps in that question than the other questions. For that question, we are multiplying a 2-digit number, right? So we're multiplying 36 and we're multiplying 12. So it's going to have multiple steps. So I'm going to use different colors to show you those steps. So when we're multiplying a 2-digit number by a 2-digit number, we're always going to start with the bottom corner. So we're going to start with this 2. This is going to be the first number we're going to look at. And what we're going to do with this 2 is multiply it by the top 2 numbers. So we're going to multiply the 2 and the 6, which gives us 12. I'm going to carry the 1. And then I'm going to multiply the 2 and the 3, which gives us 6, plus the 1 we carried over gives us 7. So 72 is our first number. Now I'm going to use a different color. So now we're going to use do the exact same steps, but with the 1. So I'm going to highlight this 1. But remember, this 2 was in the ones column, so I didn't need to do anything. If we look at this 1, we can see that it is in the tens column. So in order to represent that, I'm going to have to put a 0 here in the ones. So once again, since this 1 is in the tens column, I had to put a 0 down. And now I'm going to use the exact same steps. I'm going to multiply the 1 with the 6 and the 1 with the 3. So 1 multiplied by 6 gives me 6. And then 1 multiplied by 3 gives me 3. Right, so we get the answer 360. But we're not done yet. So now what we have to do is add up these two numbers. So we're going to add up 72 and 360. So once again, I'm going to start in my ones column and add the 2 and the 0, which gives me 2. Next, I'm going to add the 7 and the 6, which gives me 13. I'll put my 3 here, carry my 1. And now my last step is going to be to add the 1 and the 3, which gives me 4, which gives me 432 as my answer. So make sure to follow each of these steps, but only if it's a 2-digit by a 2-digit. For part B, you're multiplying 391 by 0. Remember, any number multiplied by 0 will always give you 0. In part C, you're only multiplying by a 1-digit number. So you don't have to have all of these extra steps. And in part D, you're adding your numbers. So you can pause the video now, finish up part 5, and then we're going to look at part 6. So for part 6, we're going to be doing some price tag addition. So if you look at the image I've attached from your textbook, it shows you various objects or various items and the prices that they cost. In each question, it's going to tell you certain items that a person bought. Your job is going to be to have to add up the total or add up each of those items' prices and tell us how much the person spent altogether. Don't forget, when we're dealing with money, you're going to have your dollar sign, and don't forget your decimals. So we'll do part A together. In part A, it tells us that a doctor's office bought a stapler, a notepad, and a telephone. How much did the doctor's office spend? Right, so the doctor's office bought the 3 things. So the stapler, right? The stapler cost $8. The notepad cost 71 cents. And the telephone cost $31.08. Right, so we're going to write those 3 objects down with their prices. right? So when I'm dealing with money, the first object is going to have a dollar sign, right? So the stapler cost $8, and I need to have my decimal. Next, the notepad cost 71 cents. I don't need to add my dollar sign again, but I have to make sure to line up my decimals. 71 cents. And then we could also put a 0 here because it costs $0.71. And our last item was the telephone, which cost $31.08. Once again, I'm going to line up my decimal and make sure to line up all of your place values, right? The 3 should go out here, the 1 should go there, 0 should line up, and the 8 should line up. Right, so as you've noticed, I put my dollar sign in the front of my first number, all of my decimals are lined up, and all of my place values are lined up. If we line it up and do it this way, it'll be a lot easier when we're adding, and it'll help prevent us from making any mistakes. Once again, don't forget to have your dollar sign, and now all we have to do is just add. 8 plus 1 is 9, 7 plus 0 is 7. Line up our decimal again. 8 plus 1 is 9. And then 3 plus nothing is 3. We need one more thing. We need to also have the dollar sign in our answer. So I'm going to put the dollar sign right there. And we are done. The doctor's office, right, on those 3 items spent $39.79. So please make sure to show all of your work, and then you can continue with parts B and C. Once again, please use the image that I've attached for part 6. That'll give you the names of the various items and the prices that they cost. So keep up the awesome work, guys, and I'll see you in our next lesson. Bye.